Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. The cost of one modern heavy bomber is this: a modern brick school in more than 30 cities. It is 2 electric power plants, each serving a town of 60,000 population. It is 2 fine, fully equipped hospitals. It is some 50 miles of concrete. We pay for a single fighter plane with 500,000 bushels of wheat. We pay for a single destroyer with new homes that could have housed more than 8,000 people.
Folks, those words you just heard were spoken by President Dwight D. Eisenhower back in 1953. It's what's known as his Chance for Peace speech. Now, you might be wondering why I'm starting our show off tonight with words from a president who left office over 60 years ago. Well, let me tell you, those words are just as relevant today as they were back then, maybe even more so. Eisenhower, a decorated war hero turned president, understood something fundamental about the nature of government spending and its impact on society. He saw, with crystal clarity, the trade-offs we make when we pour our national resources into machinery of war instead of the foundation of peace. Now, I'm not here to argue that we don't need a strong military. Of course we do. But what Ike was warning us about, and what we need to seriously consider today, is the cost of unchecked military spending. Not just in dollars and cents, but in lost opportunities, in roads not built, in schools not opened, and in scientific breakthroughs not achieved. As we dive into tonight's topic about the state of our republic, I want you to keep Eisenhower's words in mind. Because, folks, the choices we make about how we spend our national treasure, your tax dollars, says a lot about who we are as a nation and what we value. Are we a nation that prioritizes the tool of destruction over the building blocks of a thriving society? Are we more interested in protecting military might abroad than in the strength of our communities at home? These are the questions we need to grapple as we examine the path our country has taken since Eisenhower's time, and as we consider the crossroads we find ourselves in today. It's time to ask ourselves, are we living up to the vision of a nation that puts the welfare of its people first, or have we strayed from that path? And if we have, what can we do to course correct? So stay tuned. We've got a lot to unpack today.
Wake up, America! It's time to think. Stop swallowing the narrative. Straight from the heartland, where big city says, cutting through the noise, kicking BS in the ass. Left, right, or center, she's shaking it up, challenging the status quo, making you take another look, with facts and opinions that'll make you think. No sugarcoating, no beating around the bush, yeah. Political correctness thrown out the window, so get ready. Rachel Stein, so that's the truth you can feel. Ladies and gentlemen, rebels and misfits, from the underground studios, your nerd for news, Rachel Stein. So strap in, get ready for the ride, the show is about to begin.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Welcome back, folks. And what you just heard was another warning from President Eisenhower. This time from his farewell speech address in 1961. And let me tell you, if his earlier words about the cost of military spending were a gentle nudge, this was a full-blown alarm bell. I mean, Eisenhower, a man who had seen the horrors of war firsthand, led our nation through the early years of the Cold War, was sounding the alarm about something he saw growing right here at home. He called it the military-industrial complex. a term that's become all too familiar in the decades since. But I mean, what exactly did Ike mean by this ominous-sounding phrase? And why nearly 63 years later are we still talking about it? Well, folks, the answer is as simple as it is troubling, because the military-industrial complex has only grown stronger and more influential since Eisenhower first warned us about it. Now, in the decades since Ike's farewell address, we've seen unprecedented expansion of military spending, even in times of relative peace. The defense budgets have ballooned to astronomical figures, dwarfing the spending of other nations and consuming a significant portion of our federal budget. And it's not just about the money, it's about the influence this mass industry wields over our political process. Think about it. Defense contractors have become some of the most powerful lobbying forces in Washington. They pour millions into campaign contributions, fund think tanks that shape foreign policy, and maintain a revolving door between the Pentagon, defense companies, and Congress. The result? A self-perpetuating cycle of military spending that seems immune to cuts, even as other vital areas of our government face the constant budget battles. But here's where it gets really interesting, folks. While we've been busy debating the size of our military and its global footprint, something else has been growing in the shadows. Something our founding fathers couldn't have imagined in their wildest dreams, or should I say nightmares. I'm talking about the rise of what some call the surveillance industry complex. A modern offshoot of Ike's original warning. It's a web of government agencies, tech companies, and data brokers that have turned information into a commodity and privacy into a luxury. Now let me tell you, it's changing the very nature of our democracy. Think about it. Every click, every purchase, every message we send is being collected, analyzed, and stored. And it's not just private companies doing this. Our own government has built a massive apparatus of monitoring its citizens, often in the name of national security. But at what cost to our civil liberties? Now, this just isn't about targeted ads or personalized content, folks. It's about the potential for control and manipulation on a scale that would make George Orwell's Big Brother blush. When those in power have access to this much information about us, it tilts the balance of power even further away from we, the people, and towards the elite few who control the levers of government and industry. Now let's take a step back and really think about what this means for our constitutional republic. Our founding fathers envisioned a system where power flowed from the bottom up, not from the top down. They created checks and balances to prevent any one branch of government from becoming too powerful. But what happened when the very nature of the power itself changes? In this brave new world of big data and constant surveillance, we're seeing a shift of power away from elected officials, who are at least theoretically accountable to the people, towards unelected bureaucrats, intelligence agencies, and corporate giants. These entities operate in the shadows and make decisions that affect our lives without our input or consent. Take the Fourth Amendment, for example. It was designed to protect us from unreasonable search and seizure. But in an age where our entire lives are digitized and stored in the cloud, what does that protection even mean anymore? We've seen time and time again how national security is used as a justification to erode our privacy rights. And once those rights are gone, folks, they're awful hard to get back. This erosion of our constitutional protection isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a broader trend of expanding executive powers that's been going on for decades. Presidents from both parties have increasingly relied on executive orders, signing statements, and expansive interpretation of national security laws to bypass Congress and act unilaterally. Our founding fathers would be rolling in their graves right now if they could see this. Our founding fathers would be rolling in their graves if they could see this. They designed a system of government specifically to prevent concentration of power in any one branch. But today, we're seeing an executive branch that often acts more like a monarchy than part of a balanced republic. And here's the kicker, folks. This expansion of executive power, combined with the surveillance capabilities we just talked about, creates a potential for abuse that our founders couldn't have imagined in their wildest nightmares. It's a far cry from the limited government they envisioned, one that respected individual liberties and derived its just power from the consent of the governed. Here's the thing, folks. All is not lost. Despite these challenges to our constitutional republic, there are signs that the American spirit of liberty and self-governance is still alive and kicking. We're seeing a growing awareness of these issues, and more importantly, we're starting to see pushback. In recent years, we witnessed a surge of populist sentiment across the political spectrum. People are waking up to the fact that the system isn't working for them, and they're demanding change. From the Tea Party movement to Occupy Wall Street, from Bernie Sanders to Donald Trump, we're seeing a rejection of business as usual in Washington. And now we're hearing rhetoric from some of our elected officials that suggested they're finally getting the message. Take, for example, the recent speech by the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. His words signal a potential shift in how our government operates. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
And as heirs to the American Revolution and the descendants of patriots who defied tyranny, in the coming months, we are going to pass legislation to roll back the totalitarian fourth branch of government known as the administrative state.
All right, folks, this is where it's starting to get juicy. So, if you watch the clip, and I encourage you to do so, I will put the link to the full speech with time markers in the description of this episode. You'll notice that the left side of the aisle didn't take too kindly to Johnson's comments. And that reaction, my friend, speaks volumes. You see, what we're witnessing here is more than just partisan bickering. It's a fundamental disagreement about the role of government in our lives. On one side, we have those who believe in expanding government power, often in the name of solving social problems or ensuring security. On the other side, we have those calling for a return to limited government and individual liberties. Now, this divide isn't new, but it's becoming more pronounced, and it's forcing us as a nation to confront some hard questions about who we are and what we want our country to be. Are we still that shining city on a hill, a beacon of liberty in a world of tyranny? Or have we lost our way, trading our freedoms for a false sense of security and comfort? Well, folks, if the last election is any indication, it seems like a whole lot of Americans are choosing liberty. Over 7 million people stood up on election night and said no more. No more to big government overreach. No more to erosion of our constitutional rights. No more to the idea that Washington knows best. Now, this wasn't just a victory for one party or one candidate. It was a resounding declaration from the American people that they want their country back. They want a government that respects the limits placed on it by the Constitution. They want leaders who understand that they serve the people and not the other way around. And let me tell you, this groundswell of support for limited government and individual liberty has sent shockwaves through the political establishment. The elites in Washington are scrambling to adjust to this new reality. Some are embracing it, like Speaker Johnson. Others are fighting it tooth and nail. But one thing is for sure, that they can't ignore it anymore. Now, folks, this is where the rubber meets the road. It's one thing to win an election, but it's another thing entirely to actually change the way Washington works. We're talking about dismantling decades of bureaucratic buildup, challenging powerful special interests, and fundamentally reshaping the relationship between the government and the governed. It's a tall order. Make no mistakes. We've seen moments like this before in our history. Think about the Jacksonian era, when Americans pushed back against what they saw as a corrupt and elitist political system, or the Progressive era, when citizens demanded reforms to combat the excessive of the Gilded Age. Heck, even the Reagan Revolution was a response to what many saw as a government overreach and economic mismanagement. But here's the thing. In each of these cases, real change only happened because the American people stayed engaged. They just didn't vote and go home. They remained active, informed, and involved in the political process. And that, my friends, is the key to making sure this moment doesn't slip away again. Because let's face it, the forces of big government aren't going to go quietly into the night. I mean, they've got too much power, too much money, and too much influence to give up without a fight. If we want to see real change, if we want to restore a constitutional republic, it's going to take more than just one election. It's going to take sustained effort from all of us. That means staying informed about what's happening in Washington. It means holding your elected officials accountable, not just during an election season, but every single day. It means teaching our children about the principles of limited government and individual liberties. It means teaching our children about the principles of limited government and individual liberty that made this country great in the first place. I mean, in short, it means being active citizens, not just passive subjects. Because that's what our founding fathers envisioned, a nation of engaged, informed, and vigilant citizens who would guard their liberties jealously and never allow their government to overstep its bounds. So with that said, let's turn our attention to the team that's promising to turn this ship around. I mean, folks, we're about to get into the heart of what could be the most transformative administration in modern American history, really. I mean, President Trump isn't just talking about tweaking the system. I mean, he's promising a complete overhaul. A return to the foundational principles that made America great in the first place. He has assembled a team that claims to be ready to shake Washington to its core. But here's the million-dollar question. Are these the right people to drain the swamp? Or are they just another set of swamp creatures themselves? I mean, in Patriots' clothing. So with that question, let's take a hard look at the faces behind the Make America Great 2.0. And trust me, what we find might just surprise you. Alright, so let's dive right into the heart of what Speaker Mike Johnson is promising for a new Congress. I mean, take a listen to this clip.
Our people do not deserve to be ruled by millions of bureaucrats they've never voted for, never met, and can never hold accountable. They deserve a government that is led by those they've elected to lead. That is how Article 1 is supposed to work. That was the idea of the Congress, and we will return to that principle. The American people have called on us to reject business as usual and throw out the status quo. We must and we will heed their call.
Now, that's a pretty powerful statement right there. I mean, Johnson is tapping into the frustration that many Americans have felt for years. I mean, the sense that unelected bureaucrats in Washington have too much control over our lives. So he's promising a return to the constitutional principles of a government by the people for the people. But here's the million-dollar question. Can Johnson and his team actually deliver on these promises? I mean, we've heard similar rhetoric before, but the administrative state has proven remarkably resilient. I mean, it's going to take more than just words to dismantle decades of bureaucratic buildup. And let's not forget that these agencies serve important functions. The challenge will be striking the right balance between necessary government and overreach. I mean, it is a tightrope walk, and we'll be watching very closely to see Johnson and his colleagues navigate it. So, I mean, while Speaker Johnson's words are certainly stirring, I mean, let's not forget the man at the center of the political earthquake, Donald J. Trump, or the Donald, as I like to call him. Now, say what you will about the man, but there's no denying he's been through the political ringer the past 4 years. And you know what? Actually, it's been longer than that. I mean, that experience might just be his secret weapon. I mean, think about it. Trump's first term was a crash course in how Washington really works. He even admitted he didn't know what he was doing. Listened to the wrong people. So, I mean, he learned the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. I mean, he's seen firsthand how the deep state operates, how career bureaucrats how career bureaucrats can stonewall an administration, and how the media and political establishment can circle the wagons against an outsider. But here's where it gets really interesting. I mean, Trump isn't just coming back with battle scars and a grudge. He's got a whole team of political mavericks. I mean, who like him have been casted out by the establishment. I mean, we're talking about people like Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Vivek Ramaswamy, just for some. I mean, there's a whole lot more that are coming in. But, I mean, these are not your typical Washington insiders. They're disruptors, free thinkers who have shown they're not afraid to challenge the status quo. Now, it's just isn't a team. I mean, it's literally a coalition of disaffected, a group of influential figures who have been burned by the system and are now hell-bent on changing it. And that, my friends, could be a game changer because unlike career politicians who have invested maintaining the system, these folks have every reason to want to flip the script. And don't even get me started. I mean, do get me started. I want to talk about this. So let's talk about the evolution where we're seeing Trump's actual cabinet picked. I mean, it's not just about bringing in outsiders anymore. It's about bringing in a whole new generation of leadership, which I mean has been the problem. We're witnessing a change, literally a changing of the guard. We have Gen Xers and even some millennials stepping in to take positions of power. I mean, this is not your grandfather's Republican Party anymore. These are people who grew up in the digital age, who understand challenges and opportunities of the 21st century in a way that many of their predecessors simply don't. And this is what we need. So let's take a look at some of these names being floated for key cabinet positions. I mean, we're seeing a mix, seasoned veterans and fresh faces. Okay, but what is really striking is the generational shift. I mean, these aren't just younger versions of the same old Washington types. So they're bringing new perspectives, new ideas, and new approaches to governance. All right, so let's jump into who is going to be running this country alongside Trump for the next 4 years. So let's talk about the youngest one, Caroline Leavitt. I mean, because her appointment is nothing but groundbreaking. I mean, she's just at 27 years old, and she is set to become the youngest White House press secretary in American history. Now, that's not just a fun fact for trivia night. It's a seismic shift in how the White House communicates with the American people. Now, Leavitt isn't some political novice, though. I mean, she's cut her teeth as Trump's campaign national press secretary and served as assistant press secretary during his first term. So, she's also got congressional experience, having worked as a spokesman for Representative Elise Stefanik, and even running for New Hampshire House seat herself in 2022. But here is what really sets Leavitt apart. I mean, she is a digital native. She understands social media and modern communication in a way that many of your predecessors simply couldn't. In an age where a tweet, or whatever they're called now, can shape global policy, I mean, this has become a crucial skill. Trump himself praised Leavitt as a smart, tough, and highly effective communicator. Well, let's be honest, folks. In today's media landscape, you need all three of those qualities in spades. But here's the million-dollar question. Can Leavitt navigate the treacherous waters of the White House press corps? Will her use be an asset or a liability when she's facing down seasoned journalists twice her age? One thing's for sure, I mean, the White House briefing room is about to get a whole lot more interesting. Leavitt's appointment just isn't about youth, it's about a new generation taking the reins of power. And whether you love Trump or hate him, you've got to admit, he's making some historical picks. Now, I know there was talk about possibly changing up the White House press room and allowing more of the not so mainstream media and the old legacy media, including a spot for the new up and coming. I mean, social media journalism is the new thing. I mean, it is. We can't get away from it. No matter what CNN, no matter what MSNBC says, it is the new wave, the new generation. But we'll get into something like that. We'll get into the topics like that here in the next episodes or whatever, because that is an interesting topic. But staying on tune with Caroline, I mean, she's got the flair, she's got the She's got the vocabulary. She's got everything it needs to take to get into letting this generation understand what's going on. I mean, let's just take a listen to some of her stuff that this is with, on the Hannity show, and she knows how to talk.
Absolutely not. Let me be unequivocally clear about that. And watching this clip, I couldn't help but think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years. They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right, ABC should wake up. They just paid $15 million to President Trump's future library. That's a great thing for the American people.
So you see, ladies and gentlemen, she's got the chops, she's got the information, she's got the knowledge on how to do the job. And like I said, she's going to reach millions of the youth voters that came out this election season. So that's going to be a good thing. All right. So next up on the ticket is Trump's pick for Secretary of Education. Now, this choice kind of started raising some eyebrows, just like all his other ones. But you know why? Because they're not the traditional politician that you would think. You know, he didn't pick from the political pool. He didn't want the political pool, which is a good thing. It will be a good thing because it will cleanse all the elderly that have been in there for 60, 70 years. They don't need to be there no more. Sorry, they don't. They're not doing any good. They're not contributing to how it's going to bring America back. They're not good. They don't have America number one as focus. They become complacent. You know, they don't care. So, I mean, also, y'all need to quit electing them. Quit re-electing them in your states. But, so anyways, back to Linda McMahon. I mean, she's best known, like I said, for her as the former CEO of the World Wrestling Entertainment. And that's right, the same WWE that gave us The Rock, John Cena, Stone Cold Steve Austin. But don't let that fool you. I mean, McMahon is no lightweight when it comes to business and leadership, which is what we need. And especially in the Department of Education, we need to change that. So here's what you need to know about Linda. She's a self-made success story. McMahon and her husband Vince built WWE from a small regional operation into a global entertainment powerhouse. Now, this isn't her first rodeo in government. She served as the administrator of a small business administration during Trump's first term. So she already knows how Trump operates. She's got skin in the education game. She's been a longtime advocate for school choice and has served on the Connecticut Board of Education. Now, some folks might be scratching their heads wondering what a wrestling magnate knows about education. But here's the thing. McMahon brings a business mindset to the table. She knows how to build organizations, manage budgets, and get results. Again, some of the things we need because the Department of Education is like totally screwed up right now. So Trump's choosing McMahon signals a couple of things. He's serious about shaking up the education establishment. You know, isn't beholden a traditional education bureaucracy. He's prioritizing practical skills and workforce development. You know, her business background suggests she has a focus on preparing students for the job market, which is what we've always needed. And he's doubling down on school choice. She's been a very vocal supporter of charter schools and voucher programs. So we'll see how that goes, but it's a lot better than the people that they have had in there, trust me. But here's the $1 million question, folks. Can McMahon translate her business success to the complex world of education policy? I mean, will her outsider perspective bring fresh ideas, or will she struggle with the nuance of America's diverse educational landscape? One thing's for sure, you know, with McMahon at the helm, the Department of Education is hinged for her a literal smackdown of the status quo. I mean, whether that's a good thing or not, well, that still remains to be seen, but you can bet your bottom dollar it won't be business as usual in America's schools anymore. All right, let's dive into another intriguing pick for Trump's cabinet. RFK Jr. I mean, as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. I mean, this choice is kind of stirring up quite a bit of controversy, and for good reason. RFK Jr. He's a name that carries a lot of weight in American politics. I mean, of course, he's the son of former Attorney General Senator Robert F. Kennedy and nephew of President John F. Kennedy. But he's made a name for himself in his own right, and not always in ways that align with his family's legacy. But here's some things about RFK. I mean, if y'all didn't know, he's an environmental lawyer and an activist. I mean, he spent decades fighting for clean water and environmental causes. So, he knows the ins and outs. He's been a vocal critic of the vaccines, particularly the childhood vaccination schedule. The stance has put him at odds with the medical establishment and even, members of his own family. Now, he has ran as an independent candidate since 2024. He moved away from the Democratic side of things because, of course, you all know that because of the way things are going. And this made a challenge for both major parties. So, now putting RFK in charge of the HHS is a move that sends shockwaves through the medical community. I mean, it signals a potential shift in the vaccine policy, suggests a more holistic approach to health, and represents a clear break from establishment. Which, I mean, I can see that. I mean, I'm not a big pill guy myself, so when it comes to taking certain things, the only thing I really take is the generic form of Tylenol for my headaches. That's about the only thing that I do. I don't like taking pills. I don't believe in them. And I think that with all the stuff that we've had over the years, I think a lot of that stuff is a contributor more than it is a remedy. But that's my opinion. But here's the big question. Can RFK Jr. effectively lead an agencies whose policies he spent years criticizing? I mean, I think so. And will his unconventional views bring much needed reform? Or will they put public health at risk? I don't think public health is going to be at risk, is what you're saying, what we've been hearing. I mean, if you look at all the stuff that's going on, the public's health has already been at risk for decades, ever since Big Pharma got involved. I'm not a Big Pharma guy, so I think it's a waste of money because it's always kind of funny that you can buy the same pill over the counter for pennies on the dollar compared to what you get at what you pay for the exact same pill at the hospital. So that was always a big thing. That's what got me thinking that there's a scam going on or whatever. But again, like I said, that's my opinion. But one thing's for sure, I mean, with him at the helm, I mean, we're gonna be in for a wild ride. I mean, Trump's choice here is a clear signal that he's not afraid to buck the system, which we all knew that. I mean, even when it comes to something as crucial as public health policy. I mean, like I said, again, my opinion, they need to be looked at and possibly revamped or something. But as we wrap up tonight's episode, I mean, it's clear that as we wrap up tonight's episode, I mean, it's very clear that we are witnessing a huge seismic shift in American politics. Something we haven't seen before. I mean, from the youngest press secretary in history to a wrestling magnate running education, and with RFK running the health, Elon and Vivek going to be looking over the finances of the government. That's going to be interesting. So once we get more details on how that's going to operate, then we might do an episode on that one there. If you guys want, leave it in the comments. But the Trump administration is shaping out to be, like I said, historic. Nothing we've seen before, which is what we need. We need change. This is the change people voted for. This is the change we're holding them up to. And yeah. But folks, we've covered up a lot of ground tonight. I mean, we've talked about the foundations of our republic, the challenges we face, and the bold, some might say audacious moves being made by the incoming administration. But I believe what we're seeing isn't just a changing of the guard. It's a fundamental reimagining of the entire government, how it operates. So it's a direct challenge to the status quo, for sure. You know, a rejection of business as usual in Washington, which over 7 million people voted for. You know, now, whether you think this is exactly what our country needs or a recipe for disaster, one thing is for certain. We're living through historic times, and it's up to each and every one of us to stay informed, stay engaged, and as always, hold our leaders accountable. And as always, hold our leaders accountable. You know, quit voting party. Vote the topics, the issues. Screw what your party is. Quit being Republican or Democrat. Look at the party. Look at what they uphold, what their message is. That's what you should be looking at. Because at the end of the day, it's not about Republican or Democrat. It's not about left or right. It's about the future of our country, of the Republic, and the great American experiment that's been running for nearly 250 years. So on that note, I want to leave you with the words of Speaker Mike Johnson, his vision of what the American people want, and this is what we're going to deliver. That's what he's saying.
It is no small thing. We're also witnesses to the providence that spared our incoming president, President Trump, from the assassin's bullet, remarkable as that was, and to the new coalition of Americans that has risen from every creed, color, and cul-de-sac who want us to put America first. Our people are asking for a thriving economy and a rebuilt middle class and strong borders and a strong military, and we can deliver that. See, these objectives and these aims don't have an R or a D behind them. They have a USA.
Now, whether you agree with Johnson's politics or not, I mean, his call for unity and his focus on putting America first is something we should all take to heart. So with that in mind, this is Rachel Stein reminding you to think critically, question everything, and never stop fighting for the principles that make America great. Till next time, stay sharp, stay free. Laters.
Ladies and gentlemen of Congress, today I stand before you with a heavy heart and a resolute spirit. You have taken the lid off Pandora's box. Unleashing a torrent of division, corruption, and self-interest that threatens the very fabric of our nation. As Americans, we have placed our trust in this system to protect us and to do what is right for us. Yet, we find ourselves at a crossroads where the actions of a few have jeopardized the peace of mind and unity that our forefathers fought so hard to establish. Our founding fathers, in their wisdom, established a constitutional republic, not a pure democracy, to safeguard against the tyranny of the majority and to ensure that the rights of all citizens are protected. Benjamin Franklin famously remarked, "A republic, if you can keep it, a reminder that our system of government requires constant vigilance and active participation from its citizens." The civil rights movements of the 20th century, led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr., sought to fulfill the promise of equality and justice for all, a promise enshrined in our Constitution but often denied in practice. However, the pursuit of wealth and power by some within these hallowed halls has led to disastrous consequences. The division we are witnessing today is destroying everything that those before us fought so hard to change. The assassinations of Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. serve as stark reminders of the cost of standing up for what is right. These leaders were taken from us because they dared to challenge the status quo and fight for a better, more just society. Our founding fathers designed a constitutional republic to prevent the very mob rule we are now seeing take place. They understood that a system based solely on majority rule could easily devolve into chaos and tyranny. Instead, they created a system where laws and principles, not the whims of the majority, would govern the land. This distinction is crucial, and it is one we must remember and uphold. Yet it seems that the moral compass of many in this chamber has been shifted by an unknown force instead of striving for equality. Congress has chosen to divide and establish, yet again, the segregation of the people. This is not the vision of America that Lincoln, King, and Kennedy had. This is not the America that countless brave men and women have fought and died to protect. It is time for a change. It is time to hold our elected representatives accountable and remind them that they work for us, the people. The current is traveling. Let us remember the bravery of those who fought to protect our freedom from the British, who did not surrender that fateful night, ensuring that old glory still stood as a sign that we will never surrender. It is time to place the lid back on Pandora's box and restore the hope that was left inside. The pen is mightier than the sword. And with a stroke of a pen, we the people put you in your position, and with a stroke we can reach and replace you. Thank you, and may we all strive to live up to the ideals that make this nation great.